Okay, testing. Everyone can see the screen? Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All righty. So today we're talking about how to recapture your prisoner when they escape, aka calling your dog. Now, I mean, recall is a super common problem. I get almost everybody asks me about it. At least twice a week, I hear someone say, well, you know, he comes when he wants to. But I have to say, whenever people say that, I'm like a little confused because my main question is, if he didn't want to, why would he come? Like, they're like, well, he comes when he wants to. And I'm like, okay, but what other reason is there for a dog to come? And then my second question always was, well, why doesn't your dog want to? Why wouldn't he want to? Like, you guys are the sun in your dog's solar system. If you take your dog out on a hike, or you even just like through a really large dog park, you're going to find that your dog orbits you as they run. Like, you are the center of everything. So if the dog doesn't want to come, I usually consider this significant.
For us, it's usually, hold on, just let me catch the squirrel first, and then I'll be right back with you, Mom.
Yeah. Usually they're just like, yeah, I'll be there in a minute, right? They don't see what's so urgent, right? So I consider a recall to be kind of a relationship test, because the way that they react to being called kind of tells me a lot. It tells me whether the dog considers themselves to be like escaped, or whether they're just like out with their family on a run. It tells me whether the dog trusts their guardian's intentions. And if there are any strange spots in the relationship, it absolutely shows up in the recall first. I guess, unless it's a hound dog. Like, if anybody's read Where the Red Fern Grows, it's basically a praise of these coonhounds that are the most stubborn friggin' dogs. And they won't leave the raccoon even when it's up an enormous tree, and it takes the kid like 7 days to chop the tree down just so they can get the dang coon. And another time they nearly freeze to death because they've treated a raccoon and they won't leave it. Like, the hound dogs are bred to be really stubborn and to not give up. So if they get on a scent, they won't even hear you calling. So that's just, we bred them for that. So let's ask the big question. Why would your dog come when you call? And the only reason is because they love to do it. That's the only reason. If they're off leash, if they're free, there's no other reason for them to want to come to you, unless you put a collar on that will hurt them until they come back. And even then, there are some dogs who are like, I will take the pain. I just don't want to be back on that leash. And if I run far enough, then I can get out of the range of your receiver. So off I go. Woo! Your dog comes because they love to come to you. And I mean, like, when you come home, your dog comes running, right? They're jumping all over you. I mean, you can just come out of the bathroom and the dog's like, hi, I missed you, right? Like, you didn't get flushed down the toilet. Hooray. Dogs love to be reunited when there's been any separation. Like, I have had my dogs be delighted to see me when I like briefly stepped out of the room and came back. So they love to come to us. They love to reunite with us. If your dog isn't coming when called, it's because of one of a few possible reasons. The number one reason that dogs don't come back is that the guardian has a history of robbing their dog of their freedom when they come. And so now the dog just thinks that their guardian is a big party pooper, and they're like, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to come close enough for you to touch me and put me back on that rope and drag me home. I'm finally free. So if they think that they're going to get recaptured and they see themselves as captives, they're not going to come. They're not stupid. And then another time, sometimes it's not so much that they mind getting put on leash. Sometimes they're even tired and they're ready to go home. But like, you just don't, like, sometimes the owners are just like, come. And the owner gets there and they're like, sit. Good dog. And the dog's like, you're not even happy to see me. So I'm not going to hurry over to you next time because you don't even really seem to care. Another reason is simply that it's boring and no fun, and they see it as a chore, so they'll only do it if there's nothing better to do. You know, it's kind of like taking out the garbage. Like if you nag them, then yeah, they'll do it, but it's like whatever, it's no fun. Dogs like fun, and if there are other sources of dopamine out there on the field, you're going to be pretty low on the list. Another really common reason is that they don't even hear you. Like when dogs are having fun with their friends, they're not listening for your call. They're like a kid zoomed in on their Saturday morning cartoons. Like they do not hear you. And a lot of the time they can't come to you. They're in the middle of something. Like as far as they're concerned, they're in the middle of something. They're playing with somebody or they're having a conversation with another dog, and to turn their back on this other dog would be an unsmart thing to do at this moment. And they just can't. So they're like, yeah, you're going to have to wait. I'm busy. And sometimes it's like, I'm literally in the jaws of another dog. So how do you expect me to come running? All the reasons why dogs don't come tends to boil down to one or multiple of these 5 possibilities. So now I'm going to take you guys quickly over some basic rules of calling your dog. And then we're going to go back and we're going to look at each one in detail. Rule number 1, never, ever, ever violate your dog's trust by taking away their freedom when they come to your call. Like, unless this is like a once in a lifetime incredible emergency, do not do that. You asked them to come to you, they came to you, and you took them prisoner. Like, don't do that. Ever. Rule number 2, you have to get your dog's attention first. Before you call the dog, you have to make sure the dog can actually hear you and ideally has an idea of where you are. So get them to look at you first before you call them. Rule number 3, your dog cannot see you if you're standing still and you're any distance away. And now we're on to rule 4. Your dog cannot come to you if they're in the jaws of another dog. So do not call them when they're actively engaged with another dog. I mean, first of all, it's rude. And I'm going to go into that more, but it's rude. It's like if you were standing there talking to someone, your kid's going, bam, bam, bam. Now your dog will get distracted if you're boring. If they're running to you and you're just being boring, they're going to run past like 6 interesting smells on their way to you and maybe a couple of interesting sights. So they're going to be like squirrel and they're going to go. And you should be welcoming them with arms wide open, absolutely delighted, like tap into that joy of reunification. And finally, always show proper gratitude and make it very worth their while. If your dog chooses to return to you, that's the kind of thing that makes me feel like I don't deserve dogs when a dog comes running to me like that. So let's go over these rules again, and we'll go a little bit more into the reasons for them. The first rule is never, ever violate your dog's trust by taking away their freedom when they come to your call. You should always let them go after you've praised and treated them. You know, like hug them, touch them. What a good dog, good dog, good dog. But then let them go. Otherwise, they won't even let you touch them. You'll reach out to pet them and they'll dodge away because they'll be like, what are you doing? If it's time to leave the park, just tell them so. Say, okay, it's time to go. Let's go. And then you just leave. They'll come with you. Most of the time, they will come with you. We will go over what to do if they don't, but yeah, if you were going to put them on a leash, tell them you are going to put them on a leash before you do it. So then when you call them, they're not sitting there and trying to figure out if you are. They're like, well, if she was going to put me on a leash, she would tell me. If your dog has to stop and go, why, when you call, then that's not going to be a fast enough thing. And if it's a life and death situation, your dog is charging towards a bear and you go, come, you don't want the dog to be like, why? Are you going to take me home? No, I want to go say hi to this new dog. And boom, they're going to be gone. So you need a dog who will drop everything and be like, yay, and come running to you when they hear you call. So there should be no history of you having stolen their freedom. They shouldn't have to wonder about your motives. They shouldn't think you're really sus when you call them. It's a sign that you're being dishonest with them. And that's a problem because dogs do not like dishonesty. They've like proved this in the lab. They've had like honest people and dishonest people, like the people lie to the dog about where the treat is and stuff. And the dogs just go, well, heck with you. And they don't pay attention to the unreliable people. Dogs have no respect for unreliable people. Now, before you call your dog, first you have to get your dog's attention. If your dog is absorbed in an interesting smell, or they're having fun with another dog, or they're a fair distance away, they're not going to hear you calling them. Like there's a reason people call dogs with a whistle, and it's because a whistle is high-pitched and carries a lot farther than a human voice. If you are going to use your voice, you have to make it an interesting call, like pig calling. This would get your dog coming. Now, did anybody's dog react to those sounds? Mine hasn't looked up yet. So that might work, but we could get more interesting than that. Better make sure that volume's turned up. Yep, it is. I can't hear anything either, by the way. This is all hypersonic stuff. But my dog's not reacting. Oh, she heard to it. I hear that one. So a lot of dog whistles go at hypersonic because dogs can hear well higher than we can. It's like double or something. I remember seeing a chart one time and it just goes up and up and up and up and up. I'm sure that they can hear rats laughing and the other things that we can't hear. So a lot of the dog whistles will be like a silent whistle, which is so high pitched that like we can't hear it, but dogs can. But also just like a regular old whistle. That works fine. I have fun trying to figure out what noises get your dog's attention because it depends on the dog. Different noises will get dogs' attention. This will often get dogs' attention, this noise.
I want them all.
My dog's looking very worried at the moment. We figured out it's the screen now. And then, of course, there's this sound. I don't know if you guys have ever been in the off-leash park with a bunch of huskies when one husky starts howling and then the whole pack of them goes. But it's pretty impressive because they'll all just start up. Once one of them hears it, they all start. And some dogs will do that when they hear sirens because it provokes that reaction in them. Of my first Sheltie, Shadow, he would howl whenever I played the recorder. I've seen other dogs howl at like the harmonica. So these are noises that snag a dog's attention. Now, I'm not saying you have to howl to get your dog's attention in the park, but I'm saying that standing there and going, Fido, Fido, Fido will not nearly be as successful as Sue. Right? That will get all the dogs looking at you. And then if you can get any of the dogs to come, then your dog will come too. Because usually, like, I'll just call and all the dogs come running to me. And then I'm like, great, one of these is mine. There, that one. We should have like dog calling contests. Make sure I'm going back to the right slide now. Okay. Now let's talk about the fact that your dog cannot see you if you stand still. This picture here, when I put it onto the slide, it was an orange tiger in green ferns, and you could see the tiger very clearly. So I made it fuzzier and then turned it all yellow, and now it's very hard to see the tiger. We have incredible color vision and visual acuity for mammals. Most mammals cannot see on the red-green spectrum. They see blues, they see yellows. This is why tigers don't know they're orange. They think they're the same color as the grass. Because deer also can't see red, so the tiger also looks like the same color as the grass to them. It's like we have the secret, the tigers are orange and they don't even know it. Your dog can see at 20 feet what you see at 75 feet. And even then it is blurry and kind of like overexposed because their eyes are much more sensitive to light than ours are. And they have that reflective layer that makes their eyes glow in the dark, which also increases the amount of light that their eyes are taking in. So if you're standing still at a distance, it is very unlikely that your dog can clearly pick you out. It is helpful when you move because they're predators and they're attracted to motion. And the rods, they've got lots of rods, which are the black, white, light, dark sensing cells. And we have a lot more of those in our peripheral vision. So that's why you can like see a movement out of the corner of your eye and you turn your head because something moves out of the corner of your eye and you can't see it very clearly, but you saw the movement. That's what dogs experience all the time. I can't see it clearly, but I know something moved. So you got to move, preferably run away, tap into their prey drive. I love this. This guy went to a lot of trouble to try and experience what dogs experience. And this is the best one I've found yet of like actually trying to come up with what the dogs might be able to see.
I've always wondered what it would be like to live with the vision of a dog. According to Google, dogs only have 2 color receptors and 20% of human visual acuity. I have absolutely no idea what that means, but at a guess, dog vision sucks. But how bad does it suck?
What happened? Why?
I've always wondered what it would be like. You can just see. We hook this up to
I don't know why that happened.
Right, so I found this app called dog vision. Surprise, surprise. And it literally turns your iPhone into dog vision. So if we hook this up to a VR headset, I think we're good to go. So currently, I can just see normally. This is human vision, and it looks fine, apart from my messy room. Sorry about that. There are 3 filters that we need to activate to be officially in dog mode. First is the color blindness. This isn't too bad. Wow, I look like a vampire. Next step is the blurriness. This is a little nauseating. Why is it so blurry? And the third step is, I can't remember what it's called, but it probably is going to make it look awful. Oh no, that is not what a dog sees. There is no way that that's what it... Max, do you see this? Literally and metaphorically, because you're a dog? Frodo just looks like a blob of gold. Oh, you are a blob of gold, Frodo. Side note, I have no idea how accurate this app is, but based on my extensive Googling, the brightness thing is maybe a little bit too high, but apart from that, it's sick. Do I see a dog? Do I see a dog? Come here. Come here. Looking at this pile of dog toys, I'm instantly attracted to this one. That's a nice toy. I feel like I want to follow this. I also feel mildly attracted to the red ones. Do you want to chase this one? You do! Blue and red toys look great. They look great. This white teddy bear looks absolutely terrible. Like, Max, you probably don't want to chase that, do you? Oh, it all makes sense now. 3, 2, 1, go. No, no, no. This is my toy now, okay? Oh! Shadows look really nice, I must admit. Shadows look really good. Wow. Running around is actually quite fun. Oh, yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Wow, that bin bag looks sick. Oh, wow. I look like a Simpsons character. That is so sick. Like a really low quality Simpsons character. For the most part, I can navigate the kitchen pretty well. I'm attracted to this blue thing. I don't even know what's in it. Oh, nothing. What does dog food look like? I never actually thought about that. Maybe I should eat one dog food just for science. Max, your eyes look incredible. Oh, you're so cute. What are you doing? So I've had a lot of people say to me, Liam, teach your dog to solve the Rubik's Cube. It'll be so easy. Okay, no one said that. Today we're going to find out if that's actually possible for a human, let alone a dog. That looks like yellow. Oh, that also looks like yellow. Wait. Oh, that looks exactly the same. In 3, 2, 1. Ding, ding, ding. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Hey, hey. Is that complete? Oh my goodness. Holy crap. I just solved the cube in dog vision, dude. Oh, that really hurt my eyes. That's a good way to end the video, my friends. Holy crap.
So obviously we don't know whether that's what dogs see or not, because we have to guess. But we do know that they are much more sensitive to light. Now, I mean, their pupils do their job, so it might not be as overexposed as that. But honestly, I would not be surprised if what they see is very overexposed by our comparison, because I have seen dogs be unable to spot things that to me are quite clearly there. And dogs have a very strong reaction to reflections on floors that make me think that they're extremely uncomfortable or frightening for them. So I've seen enough that I suspect that that might be pretty close to what they've got. But I also think they get a lot of visual input from their nose. So we can never really know. Anyway, let's move on. Your dog cannot come to you if they're in the jaws of another dog. So first of all, if your dog is actively engaged with their friends, it's kind of rude to call them and demand that they interrupt playing with their friends and come to you. Why? Because you wanted to give them a cookie and a pet. Like, they're like, if I am interrupting play with my friends, there better be a fire. Because I would certainly be annoyed if I was hanging out and talking to my friends and my mother was like, you have to come downstairs right now. And I came and then she was just like, oh yeah, I wanted to give you this cookie. I'd be like, thanks, Mom. Can I go back to my friends now? You can certainly be like, who wants cookies? But I would wait for a break in the action, which tends to happen fairly often. They wrestle for a while and then they kind of take a break and they kind of stand around panting. And then that's a great time to be like, ooh, puppy, 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 who wants cookies? I'm only going to feed cookies to my own dog because I don't know if any of you have allergies, but come on over. And then they'll come running. Now, your dog will get distracted if you are boring. So don't just move to get their attention. Keep moving the whole time. Run. Whip sticks around. Wave treats at them. The world is so full of interesting information for them, and we are completely oblivious to most of it. We're so fixated on our excellent vision that we are missing a whole bunch of stuff. And dogs don't really have great focus. So if they're running towards us and we're just standing here like waiting for them to get to us, they're absolutely going to go squirrel and take off because we don't even seem that excited. We don't seem to be reacting to the fact that they're coming. Maybe they misunderstood and misheard us and there's something interesting over here. So off they go. You have to compete with everything else in the environment. You have to be more interesting than all the other dogs, more interesting than the squirrels, more interesting than the dirt, which is actually a tall order. So you should be like cheering them every step of the way. Where's my dog? Come back. Come on. Oh, here he comes. Amazing. You're the best dog in the world. Woohoo. Look at you go. Like, I cheer the dog like they're about to cross the finish line of the Olympics and get the gold. And I will run away from them to trigger their prey drive, and they will come to chase me, whatever it takes to get and keep their dog's attention. So here is me calling Gretel when she was about 6 months old. Yeah, here she comes. And yeah, I put it to slow-mo because it's funny. I have never had a problem with Gretel coming because I have always cheered them. You can do it. You're amazing. Best dog in the world. And then they get treats and rubs and cuddles, and I'll throw a stick. I will bomb them with as many rewards as possible. I have never struggled with getting my dogs to come to me. Except for situations where it's like, yeah, legitimately, that is a very difficult situation. In which case, I just keep calling until I succeed. If I keep on making noise and making interesting sounds and I keep running, they will eventually come to me. But I make sure it's really, really, really fun. So I welcome them with my arms wide open. I'm like, where's my girl? Come here. Where's my girl? That's it. You can do it. Come on. Where's my baby? And I got my arms wide open. You'll crouch down if you need to. They love, like, they can't resist a crouching person. They've got to come kiss that face. There's a human face right there. They got to come kiss it. And you hold out your arms and you act like you haven't seen them in a million years, and they will come running. If there's anything positive in your relationship, they'll be like, oh boy, yay. You know, and you tell them how happy you are to see them, and they'll come most of the time. And then when they get there, show proper gratitude and make sure it is very worth their while. So all the rewards, play rewards, food rewards, love and affection and kisses and rubs and scratches, everything. If your dog's tail isn't wagging like crazy, you're not doing it right. I don't care if the dog jumps up on me at that moment. I don't care if they're run around and they get the zoomies because they're just so excited. It's one of the few times where I really want to amp my dog up to the ultimate levels of excitement. Most of the time I'm like, okay, let's stay regulated. Let's stay calm and regulated and not get overexcited. But when I call, it all goes out the window. Then it's time to get overexcited and delighted, and make sure that you're not just giving them kibble. It should be like hot dogs or pepperoni or like something really, really special that they think is just amazing. Lots of gratitude. Thank you so much for coming. I know how hard that was for you. I know. And you're so awesome. Hey, you're the best. Why don't you take 2 more minutes? 2 more minutes in the park, okay? And then we're going to go. Off you go. Shoo. It's precious when your dog chooses to come to you, because they could just buzz off and live in the woods and not ever have to go in a crate ever again. They could choose that, and they don't. And I love that. Now it's time for a parable that some of you may have already heard from my in-person lessons. I tell this story a lot because it amused me so very much at the time and continues to amuse me to this day. I had a roommate when I was in vet tech school, and she had a little Yorkshire Terrier called Peggy. And over the 3 months or so that we were living together, I watched her train Peggy to run away when called. If she had set out a behavior plan to do it, she could not have done it more perfectly. I tried to give her advice once or twice, but she wasn't interested, so I just sat back and let it happen. Peggy was this little Yorkie. She used to live in downtown Toronto before this, and we were living in rural Ontario because we were at the agricultural campus of University of Guelph. So we had this backyard full of trees and lots of squirrels, and those huge Ontario squirrels, right? So every morning, my roommate would feed Peggy. She would feed her breakfast first, which struck me as odd. Then she would let Peggy outside. And as soon as Peggy had peed on the grass, she'd say, Peggy, come. And Peggy would come to her, and then she would take Peggy inside and go to school. And Peggy would just be sitting there looking out the window at those squirrels, regretting her life decisions. So the first thing that happened as a consequence of this is that Peggy started holding her bladder when she got out in the yard so she could do some squirrel chasing before she got called in. So instead of peeing as soon as she hit the grass, like she did when we first arrived, she started to hold it for 10 or 15 minutes. And my roommate would be standing there going, Peggy, go pee. Peggy, go pee. Peggy, 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 go pee. And I'd be sitting there eating my yogurt parfait, and I'd be like, soon as Peggy peed, finally, I mean, she'd already been holding it all night. How long could she hold it? She would eventually pee, and then she would get called in and left alone. So then it occurred to her that if after she peed, what if she didn't come? Well, that's when she figured out that she was faster than Mom and that she had twice as many legs. And she's like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. If I don't come to you, you can't catch me. So now I'm sitting there eating my yogurt parfait, watching my roommate chase her dog around the yard. And I'm like, maybe you should put a long line on when you let her out there. And she's like, no, she knows what she's supposed to be doing. And I'm like, irrelevant, but okay. Keep eating. So now she was taking about half an hour in the yard. I often left for school and my roommate was still trying to wrangle her dog inside. And then one day, Peggy, who again, she was like 7 pounds. Yorkies are itty. She discovered a small hole in the fence. So then I was sitting there eating my yogurt parfait and watching my roommate chase her dog down the road. Peggy, get back here! Peggy, get back here! Pop quiz. What could my roommate have done instead?
Run away from her dog, yet making lots of noise.
Yep, I would have got her. She's a terrier. She's out chasing squirrels. She had a high prey drive. What else?
Well, at the beginning, she could have kind of like started feeding you after potty breaks. So the dog will be hungry and wants to go home.
Yes, exactly. I like why she didn't give the dog breakfast as she went out the door, so the dog would at least have breakfast to look forward to. I don't know. I guess her theory was that she'd feed the dog so the dog would poop if she had to, but she didn't usually do a morning poop. She did like an evening poop. So I never understood that. But yeah, absolutely. I would put the dog out first and then feed her when I went out the door so the dog would have something to look forward to. Anybody else have any ideas?
Get up earlier and let the dog play outside for a while.
That would be good, wouldn't it? Tell the dog you have this long to play. And that's that. And again, originally she was coming when called. And it was just the fact that she realized that if she took longer to pee and she ran away, she would get 20 minutes instead of 2. You know, she wasn't a disobedient dog in any other way, but she was being very well punished for coming when called. And then she would be scolded for having run away. So she would be scolded when she was finally let herself get caught. So first of all, Peggy should have had a set time limit, 10 or 15 minutes. Again, it was a fenced yard, and until she discovered that hole, it was secure. So she could have just put Peggy outside, sat down and had her breakfast, and then come and let Peggy in for breakfast after that. And then if the first 2 things were somehow still not sufficient, then I absolutely would have attached a long line to the dog so that when it was time to go, she could just grab the dog's leash and say, okay, we're going in now, and bring her in. And then when the dog did come, she could tell her what a good girl she is and make her feel wonderful and special. I never had a problem with this dog. Sometimes my roommate would be kept late in a lab and I would be home first, or sometimes I would come home for lunch. So I would let Peggy out and I would say, you have 5 minutes of my time. And I'll bring some treats out. And she'd run around the yard and chase away all the squirrels and bark at them and tell them, never come back here. And a couple times I'd be like, hey, Peggy, come here. And she'd come over and I'd give her a cookie and I'd be like, go get those squirrels. Go get those squirrels. And I'd send her back. And then, so she would come to me, get a couple of cookies. And then she would go back to squirrel chasing. And I'd be like, okay, Peggy, it's time for me to go inside and eat my lunch now. Come on. And she would come inside with me. And then I would keep her company while I ate my lunch. And then I would leave. I never had a problem with this dog. It's important to remember that dogs need time to be dogs. I find that one of the biggest reasons for a dog not coming when called is quite simply that they feel that they're not ready to come in. And again, they suspect that they're going to get reeled in. Or they feel that they're always being called whenever, as soon as they start to have fun, rolling in this nice dead deer, that's when you call me. You never let me have any fun. So I would never, ever call a dog to correct or stop a behavior that I don't like. If the dog is rolling in a deer, I'm not going to go, Greta, at that moment. I'm going to go, get out of that deer. Gross. Hey, move. Good. Good girl. That's my good girl. Like, I'm just going to tell her to move, right? If your dog is humping another dog in the park, you don't call your dog. You come over there. And you storm over there and say, get off. That's too much. Can't you see he's not enjoying that? It's got to be consensual. Get off, get off, get off. right? Or if your dog is bouncing around yapping, you go, hey, if you quit your yapping or we're going to go home. But don't call them when they're being naughty. Calling should be a reward. It should be wonderful. People tend to just walk around shouting their dog's name all the time. And it's like, you don't need to shout your dog's name. Your dog knows your voice. Your dog knows that if you speak, you're talking to them. They don't think you're talking to another dog. And if they weren't sure, they could come and check in and take a look at your face. There are lots of other ways you can interact with your dog. You don't have to just call them all the time. Like, people call their dogs way too much. One of the other things you can do is just to get your dog's attention is just like point out points of interest. Like, wow, look at this big stick. Look at this stump. Do you think you could jump up on this stump? Oh, look, there's a new dog in the park. Hey, look. So that they listen to you. They're like, oh, what do you always have interesting things to talk to me about or to show me. And they're going to tune in. And they're not like, why? They're just like, a stick. You found a big stick. And you're like, yeah, look at this. And then you can also show interest in what they're doing. Oh, you found a dead deer. Okay, let's move. Gross. You can just indicate a general direction. Often we don't need them to come all the way to us. We're just like, hey, we're going this way now. You've had fun playing with this dog, but we're moving this way down the trail. So come on this way, let's go. And the dogs will just barrel by you. Or even if I'm just at the park and it's time to leave, I'll be like, hey, this way, it's time to go. And we can also just spend time together, like just be. They don't have to come. They don't have to perform okay, you go bark. They don't have to perform a perfect sit stay at the end of their recall. Again, this is not an obedience competition. You just want your dog to enjoy being with you. And if you make it enjoyable for your dog to be with you and near you, sometimes it's hard to get rid of them. I'm always like, go away, go play, leave me alone. And they're like, and I'm like, go, run, be with your own kind, go. So yeah, make them really enjoy being with you. And then you don't need to call them because they're always right there. And now it is question time. Does anyone have any questions? Someone's got questions. I know it.
Definitely going to be changing the way I've been doing a few things.
I was expecting you guys to be like, well, how do I get my dog out of the park if I can't put the leash on them when they come when called? I figured I was going to have a whole bunch of that.
I'm just not taking off your leash when she's in the park. It's easier for me to catch her.
Yeah, right?
Usually like, if I want, for example, her, like, if she wants to be around me, but at the same time she wants to be somewhere not at the same location that I am, like farther in the park or something, she would come to me. She would start to giving me her leash. I'm taking it and she's just pulling me there, like, okay, I'm not going home, but I'm not leaving park either. I'm just relocating you.
And this is what I find, and this is why I really encourage my clients to go for walks on trails, like off-leash trails with their dogs, because like a lot of people really think that their like prisoner is going to take off running and be like, whoa, freedom, as soon as they give them any chance. But like, honestly, our dogs do love us, and they don't want to lose sight of us. If they haven't had freedom in a long time, they can get like drunk on it and lose track of where you are. But most of the time, usually all it takes is for them to get lost in the woods once or twice for them to start paying attention to where you are. And I'm quick to dodge behind a tree if my dog's not paying attention, and then like be like, come and find me. Where are you? I miss you. And then the dog comes to find me, and I'm like, you found me. You saved my life. And the dog just keeps a better eye on you after that, because you tend to get lost in the woods. And if I'm at the off-leash park, I'm always moving around. I rarely sit still or stand still. Sometimes I'll sit down and pull out my phone for a bit if I'm just there to chill out. But for the most part, I like to change positions frequently, because if I'm always in the same spot whenever my dog checks on me, they're going to start checking in less and less, right? Because they're like, whatever, I put her over there, she's fine. right? And instead you kind of want them to be like, oh, where is she gone now? There she is. And, you know, they can be playing with all the other dogs. And I'll go to like a nice big park, like Charleston Park by the seawall there off 4th, or Shaughnessy close to me. Shaughnessy Park is huge, right? Yeah, it's such a good park. You can't see, so these parks, you can't see the end from the beginning. Like you can easily disappear in those parks. And so I'm just wandering around, and the dog's like, oh, I got to leave my friends and go after my mom because I don't want to lose track of her. She wanders off. Mom, come back. And they can't call us. So they just have to come barreling after us and be like, now where are you going? And I'll be like, oh, I just thought I'd go over to this area. Look, a waterfall. And they're like, ooh. And then later on, we'll wander back and I'll be like, there's that doodle you were playing with. Why don't you go play with them again? And they're like, okay. And off they go. And yeah, if I find that the times that I've called my dogs and had trouble getting them back have either been times where they were interacting with another dog. Like, for example, I have a rule. If they're in my front yard, they're not supposed to go on the road. But there have been a couple of times where a dog they knew came around the corner and they bolted into the road to go say hi to that dog. Now, I live in a double cul-de-sac. There's like this end's a cul-de-sac and this end's a cul-de-sac. And then there's like one little T-junction that leads into both cul-de-sacs. So there's very little traffic. All of the neighborhood dogs run around on the street. And I'm just the mean mom who won't let my dogs run around on the street like all the other dogs. So then I'm like, get back here. What do you think you're doing? Come on. And then I'll switch into happy voice and be like, where are my girls? Where are my girls? And they come. But usually it's like, yeah, we'll be there in a minute. We're just going to say hi to Charlie. Okay, we're coming. Jeez. And I'm running, right? Often people are like, he's not coming. And I'm like, the dog could probably be saying, just give me a minute, right? How many times do I tell my kids, okay, dinner? And I hear just a minute. Not that they're not coming. It's that they want to save their game. And I'm like, in my day, we couldn't save our game. Hi, are you all done barking? You ready to come in now? Here, why don't you come up?
I just threatened to give her supper to the dog if she waits too long.
The dogs would be okay with that. Do you have anything to say, Kenny?
I guess the challenge that I have is if there's nobody else around, yeah, she comes back, we play, like it's all good. But if she's off leash and there's a dog she doesn't know, or that comes running at her because she's still reactive to that, I've been trying to get her to come back when there's something else going on, and she doesn't because, you know, attacking that dog and teaching it some manners is more important to her in that moment than coming back to me.
Well, and keep in mind too that even humans only have voluntary control over ourselves when we're emotionally regulated, even human beings, and dogs even less so. So when we're asking our dogs to engage in a voluntary behavior like coming to run to us, but they have anything that's sending them into fight or flight, like, I don't know what you guys are phobic of, but if you spotted a cobra on the other side of the room, and then I was like, Stacy, come here, you'd be like, just a minute. And when you're saying, hey, turn your back on that tarantula or that cobra or that clown with a meat cleaver and just come on over here to me, like, very likely you're not going to do that, right? And I mean, you can freeze up or whatever. And I remember my childhood dog Shadow, he stepped in a yellow jacket nest at a park. And by the time the wasps came up looking for that asshole who stepped on their hidden, like, if you don't want people stepping on your nest, don't bury it in the goddamn grass. But anyway, they came looking for the dog that stepped on their nest, and the dog was long gone, but I was right there. So they were like, get her. And they swarmed me. And I just stood there and screamed. I just stood there and watched them sting me and screamed. And my dad had to come running into the cloud of wasps and scoop me up and run me out of there because I could not move. And he might have been like calling me, like, come over here or something. I don't know. But if he had, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. I was just frozen. So whenever a dog feels that there's a threat, yeah, they may not even hear you because they're at that point they're tunneling on the danger or the risk. And then they're also, again, they're going to make the decision based on what's safe at the time. And it's like you can say, come, and they can be like, yes, I understand you would like me to come to you, but I have a threat here. And I'm not going to turn my back on this guy. Right? So in those situations, that's when it's just like, yeah, you're going to have to go get your dog. Unless you can break through that. And again, if you can play around with sounds and figure out what sound really breaks through your dog's attention, that can sometimes be all it takes, because they see a trigger or something and they go all tense. But if you can, squeak a squeaky toy or something that they associate with play or safety, or, make a sound that they just find very, very attractive, that sometimes might get them to turn their head toward you. But it depends on how unsafe they feel. Because,
Makes sense.
yeah. And, it's not that you're doing anything wrong necessarily. But sometimes they just can't. And it's not, they can't because their leash is hooked on something. It's like, I can't because I do what I feel and I'm not feeling it right now for whatever reason. And dogs find it really hard to overcome their feelings and do something different. And if you can develop enough positive associations with recall, like the goal, the hypothetical goal, the explanation that dog trainers will give you for why a recall can and should work in any situation, is that your dog has so many memories of being joyful and playful at the sound of that call, that as soon as they hear that, they feel safe and happy and they want to come running to you. Hypothetically. And I find it works most of the time. But I find that ultimately it's always going to be your dog's game time decision based on whatever's going on in their life at that very moment. So it helps to pick your moment. It helps to pick your battles. Often it's just better to go and get the dog when you can. Although, again, if they feel like they're being chased, they'll run away, right? So it's one of those things where deciding, do I come marching over to the dog or do I book it in the opposite direction as fast as I can, is something that comes with time and experience. But usually if the dog is absolutely frozen, won't look at you, can't move, then I'm like, okay, you're frozen anyway, I'm going to come up to you. If, on the other hand, they're like trying to play keep away, they're like, oh yeah, you want me? You come and get me, right? I'm just like, okay, I'm leaving, bye, whoosh. And they're like, wait for me. And you can play like hold out a stick and be like, come and get it. You can't get the stick. I'm playing keep away with you. But you can't get these cookies. And they'll come running most of the time. And I have caught dogs that really did not want to be caught by running away from them. Like there was one dog that I was sitting it, and he had a flat collar. And I just taken him to the pet store. I'd gotten him some wonderful bone or something, and I was just putting him back in the car, and he managed to slip his collar and take off in the parking lot. And he clearly had been punished for coming many times, because he would not come within touching reach of me. I'd call him and he'd come over, but he'd stay a good 10 feet away. And then he'd start dancing around like, no, you're not going to get me. I'm loose. I'm finally free. And I'm taking off through the parking lot. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot tell this client that I let her dog get hit by a car. So I just took off down the sidewalk, waving the new bone and going, yeah, it's mine. You can't catch me. And the dog would come after me, right? And then like make a grab for the bone. And then I'd make a grab for the dog, and the dog would be like, oh, no, you don't. And I'll be like, okay, fine, you don't get the bone. And I took off again. And we did this 3 or 4 times before I thought dog was finally like, I got the bone. And I'm like, and I've got you. Good boy. good boy, best boy in the whole world. Have this bone. You're so awesome. I love you. You're the bestest dog. Let's have a whole bunch of treats. Come on, amazing. You're so great. Blah, 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 all the way to the car. And I'm like, because I couldn't very well. Again, that's one of those situations where it's like, I hate calling a dog and not going, okay, off you go again. But a parking lot is not the place to do that. You have to like, got you. Go have fun in the parking lot again. So all I could do is praise the heck out of the dog. And then we did a lot of recall work in the park that week so that he would trust me next time. And he never slipped his collar again. But yeah, he knew. He was like, no, I'm not going to come anywhere near your hands because hands put on leashes and I don't want to have a leash on. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't care about that if you would just jump in the car. And he's like, no, I don't want to get in the hot car either. And I'm like, okay, now we have a problem. Because the first thing I did when he slipped out of his collar was like, oh, look at that. Well, in you get the car. And he was like, no, I'm going to book it through the parking lot instead. And I was like, oh. Time to run around and scream like a crazy person. I'll make a big fool of myself to get a dog to come when called. Again, all people see is that a dog is coming when called. That's all they see.
Well, I have to say, Orion comes 99 times out of 100.
That's impressive because we've got a beagle.
Yes. And I now understand when he doesn't come, it's because something is more interesting in the backyard than coming to mom.
Yeah, he's probably hooked on a smell. I think that I find that the hounds, once they found a smell, they are oblivious to everything else. So if they're really sniffy, they'll like walk themselves through thorn bushes. They'll wear their paws down to the skin and start bleeding on their paws. They'll cut their feet on ice. They will completely ignore all safety if they've got their nose on a smell. So I'm like, they can't hear you a lot of the time.
Or he feels the need to bark because Orion will only bark when he's in the backyard. Which is weird. He doesn't bark in the house. He doesn't bark when people come to the door. He only barks when he's in the backyard.
Does he just like bay to hear the sound of his own voice, or is he barking at things?
Sometimes it's just to hear his own voice. Sometimes he's barking at the neighbor because the neighbor across from my backyard likes to talk to him.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Or sometimes when he doesn't, if it snowed, he has to escape to the front yard to pee in the front yard. Or else the other dogs won't know this is his house.
Right. Very important.
Very important. Yeah. Very important.
Yeah. I love dogs. They're so fun. Like, I love them. And I don't know. There are times where I call my dogs and they come to me and I'm just like, I wish you would be bad. Because
it's like I have a gate.
Such angels I feel like I don't deserve.
I have a gate at the backyard, right? Because my doorway goes out to the carport and then there's like a gate into the backyard. So he will stop. He stops at the gate and waits for me to tell him to come in. But if he's going to go to the front yard, you can see he starts towards me and then he'll drop his head and he'll kind of like slink and cut across the driveway into the front yard.
Mm.
And if it snowed, he does that. And it's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, yeah, dude, I get it. You got to go to the front yard and make your mark. And he'll go out, he'll pee in the front yard, and he comes right back.
Yeah. Well, Ginny's like that. She doesn't like. So our back door opens onto a deck. And the big dog, Gretel, she happily runs down the deck and into the dog run in the backyard. She there's a dog run, but she just breaks her way into the backyard and goes to pee there. And I'm like, whatever. But Ginny's like, no, that's too much. I have to go down all those steps. And I don't want to. And I also don't really want to pee on the deck. So instead, I'll just like hold it until I wet myself in the middle of the living room floor on the tile. And I'm like, how is that any better than the deck? So, but she does like to, so I'll put her out the front because the front's got a garden and she's like, oh, good, dirt. I like to pee on dirt. So she'll sometimes scrabble at the front door and I let her out the front. So I have a long line that I attach her to for the front because she could, if she saw another dog, she absolutely would take off towards the other dog. She's got very poor self-regulation. So she comes when called, but she goes too. So I have a long line clip for her. But there are lots of times where, say, I'm just like going out to the car to get something or whatever, and I'll say, yeah, come on out. And the dogs will come out and they'll be milling around the yard. And that's when we work on not going into the road. And they like to be out there, but they understand that they're out there on the condition that they don't go taking off on the road. Because if I catch one of them on the road, oh no, now you're going on a long line. Oh, here you go. I'm going to have to put you on the long line now. You went in the road. And I will go and I will tie them up again. So it's, you know, explaining to them that in the backyard, you get freedom. In the parks, you get freedom. But in the front yard, freedom's a privilege. Because I have to be able to trust you to stay safe. So it's one of those things where it's like based on trust. And if they violate my trust, they go back on the long line. And they're learning. Gretel's pretty much got it. Ginny's, again, not bred for obedience. But she's, you know, she likes to go next door and sniff the smells of the min pin who lives next door. So then I'll be like, where are you? But if I call her, she comes running all happy. And I'm like, at least it wasn't the road. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Good girl. Very happy to see you. Glad you haven't been stolen by a cougar. All right. Well, if nobody else has any more questions, I will let you guys go.
I'm being told it's time, so.
Okay, we'll
right.
see you Sunday.
I'll see you then. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you, Carol. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.